Awesome. So it's great to be here. Thank you, Jen, for inviting me. So my name is Karen Freberg, and I am a professor in strategic communications at the University of Louisville, but also an adjunct instructor for the WVU Graduate Online Graduate Program. And I have been teaching, almost 15 years, the PR Concepts and Strategy course. And I've also been teaching the social media marketing course. Well, I have to say that WVU is actually the longest employer that I've had. I started teaching at WVU when I was still a doctoral student at the University of Tennessee. So it seems like just a few years ago, but then I have to remind myself, yeah, that was almost 15 years ago. But I actually got started teaching at WVU in encouragement of one of my former professors who was on my dissertation committee, Dr. Lisa Fall, and she saw a notice in the Chronicle for Higher Education about designing a social media class. And I was, at that time, it was 2009, around that time, I thought, oh, this is an area that I want to go into, get an experience. And then we connected, and you reached out and were like, Karen, your background's in PR. Would you be interested in teaching a PR course? And the rest is history. And I love teaching in the WVU course and program just because not only is it a program where you have a diverse group of faculty from academics to practitioners, but the students really do make the program really exciting to be a part of. They come in with fresh ideas. They're coming from all over the world. Some are fresh out of college, so they're starting their entry-level careers, but then you have individuals like Whitney, who's also a graduate of our program and of course teaching. She's at a senior level at General Motors. And so the diversity of the student body in our classes is really exciting. And then also the program leadership. It's been very supportive. I feel that it's been very encouraging to be part of this program, to grow, to flourish as a professor and teaching an online program. And I would say too, WVU's opportunity to take on me, to teach online really helped me through COVID because the online teaching experience that I had really helped me foster, kind of a consistent, stable environment for my students in the midst of a global pandemic. So I'm really grateful to be part of the program. Well, I'm a big believer of bringing as much real-world experience as possible. I've been described as more of an applied researcher in public relations, which I take that label definitely to heart. And so every time that I come into class, whether it's, for a discussion board or providing feedback for the student work that I am grading or reviewing, I always try to keep in mind what are things that I can do to really help the student take this, project, whether it is for their employer or for perhaps their dream company that they would eventually like to work for. How could I make it where someone at that respective company would be like, wow, this is really innovative and very forward thinking. So when I bring in, my experience into the classroom, I try to bring in the latest updates, the latest trends, the latest resources for the students to make sure that the content is fresh and current. But I also try to put in, my 2 cents, not only from an academic standpoint, but from a consultant standpoint. What are things that I've seen in the industry that professionals are looking for, that extra level of detail that really would help the students' work kind of set themselves apart from other professionals in the workplace, that would add that unique standing and unique perspective that you don't necessarily see. So I try to wear multiple hats in the classroom. One of being an academic, making sure that the work is forward thinking, it's robust, it's professional, it follows the guidelines that we have set for the program, but also it is aligned with industry standards so that the students who are able to showcase their work in their portfolio after they graduate, other professionals are like, wow, this is amazing that you created this in class or in this program. And so it kind of amplifies, kind of the expectations that we have in our classes. And so I try to bring as much real world experience as possible into the students, because at the end of the day, we want to empower them to make sure that they are marketable and that they are forward thinking and leaders in our industry after they graduate. Absolutely. Yeah, I try to have as many touch points as possible for the students. With online, That is one thing that I learned very early on, is that with the online kind of classroom experience, you not only have the discussion boards and the email, you also have the opportunity to do virtual conference calls or phone calls, and then sometimes even in person. I've actually had a few students who have lived in Louisville, Kentucky, and that's where I'm based. And we met up for coffee. It's like, oh, I saw you online, and now we're having coffee in person. And so I've always been kind of thinking, like, I always put myself in the student's mindset, like what would be kind of the level of engagement I would want to have as a student, and what are things that I can do to kind of improve on that or even amplify that a little more. So I always try to relate to the students. I always ask them, when they introduce themselves, if they say something like, oh, I love travel, I'm like, hey, this is what I'm doing for my conferences, or this is where I'm going first talk. And of course, I love seeing students share their fur babies, whether it's cats or dogs. And then I get to share, like, okay, this is my Australian Shepherd, and so it's a way to kind of connect and really kind of bring the human side into the classroom. And in terms of, stories, I remember there was a few years ago, I had a student that was really, they had some additional challenges going on, with their work, and they were kind of shifting, jobs and everything. And they said, hey, I apologize if my head is not necessarily in the game for this class, but I really want to do my best work. It's just, this is kind of what I'm looking at. And so I just said, hey, let's jump on a call. Like, let's talk about this. Like, I'm here not only as a professor in this course, and I believe it was a PR concepts and strategy course that this student was in. And we talked for like 2 hours. And I feel that as one of the things that I think is really cool about what we do as professors is we're not only there to share our expertise and experience in the subject matter that we're teaching, but we're there kind of to kind of say, okay, here are some things that you don't see in the textbooks that you may be facing in the workplace, and let's talk about it. And so I've kind of put on the mentor / coach hat on, and as a result, the student was able to get, through the semester with flying colors. They did really well on their final project, and they're in a new position that they are thriving in. And I think just that extra little touch of empathy and just kind of being there for the students to let them know, hey, I am a professor, but I'm also a human being that you can talk to for advice. That's always been kind of my mentality. Is I wanted to be a professor that I wish I had I kind of use several professors I've had throughout my career and my parents as examples, and kind of say, okay, here's the professor I wish I had mentoring me in my graduate program or undergraduate program along the way. Oh my gosh. I would love to work with Ryan Reynolds' team at Maximum Effort. I think that would be very entertaining. You would be on your toes, and just having Ryan as a boss for a day would be very interesting. And I really do feel that what Ryan, I'm a big Ryan fan. I mean, I think what he's doing with his work, across the board for his philanthropy, with Creative Ladder, with his, ads and branding, I think just working with him for a day would be truly amazing. And he's the nicest guy. I mean, he really is very committed to really making a difference across the board. And I just think it would be I probably would be sore just laughing so much. I don't know how much work I would get done, but I would learn a lot and have a good time.